Welcome.
There you go.
Welcome to the Fairbanks Pipeline Training Center. Thank everybody for coming and joining us today. We're just going to start out with a few quick notes here and a safety minute, as we do with all our meetings here at the training center. First thing I'd like to point out is the exits, in case of an emergency. We have a couple exits over to the side, out the back, down the hall. Muster point, if we all have to leave, will be over at our camp. We have a construction camp over here, and it's got a big letter E on the front of it, E. So that'll be our muster point. And there is an AED machine just across the hall out here on the wall, should we need that, and hopefully we don't. The restrooms are just across the hall to the right also. With that being said, I'd like to have a little safety minute. With spring coming to Fairbanks, we all get really excited. We want to get out. We want to do things. Temperatures are getting up into the 40s. But we have to keep in mind it's getting down into the 20s at night, so it's still freezing. We need to allow ourselves a little bit extra time, especially in the morning. Tomorrow morning, they say it's going to snow a couple of inches tonight again. So if that happens, we all know there's going to be ice underneath that snow. So we're going to have to be careful where we're walking, what we're doing, pay attention. My wife, unfortunately, knows this all too well. She is currently healing up from a surgery on her shoulder where she slipped in a parking lot on the ice. So please take your time, walking, driving, whatever it may be, watching out for yourself, and more importantly for the person that's in a hurry next to you. They're kind of the hidden danger and everything. So with that, thank you. Senator?
Thank you, Chad. Appreciate it. And again, thank you for the opportunity to be in your facility here today. I'd like to welcome all of the witnesses that have joined us for an important discussion about resource development within the state of Alaska. As many of you, I'm sure, know, it was gold mining that ultimately determined where we are here in Fairbanks. It was Captain Barnett's riverboat that ran out of draft on the Chena, and fate determined where his mining supply business was to be located. And while Barnett was perhaps too late and too far away to profit from the Klondike gold rush, he was part of that gold rush and that led us to modern day. Today, Fort Knox and Pogo, both world-class mines north and south of the city, continue the proud tradition that give meaning to Fairbanks' motto. This region, like so much of our state, is blessed with vast natural resources that we can use to gain prosperity and fulfill the promises of statehood. Today's Seward's Day. I actually forgot about that when we had scheduled this hearing, but it is Seward's Day, and there's still a little bit of laughter and chuckle when people think about Seward's icebox or Seward's folly. But not even Seward could have conceived of the resource wealth when the U.S. purchased from Russia this amazing state. Alaska has what virtually no one else has. Tens of billions of barrels of oil, hundreds of trillions of cubic feet of natural gas, a massive supply of coal, countless deposits of hard rock minerals, of course, renewable resources beyond imagination. And if we can harness them, we can supply them to the rest of our nation to sustain our growth, our competitiveness, and our security. Really, our hardest task is not in finding the resources or developing the know-how or recruiting the manpower needed to responsibly produce them. Instead, it's really overcoming the restrictions that are imposed, oftentimes by our own federal government, which fails to understand why Alaska must be allowed to explore and to develop. Tens of millions of acres of our lands and waters have been unilaterally withdrawn in recent years against our strongest objections, and in my view, oftentimes in violation of the law. The 1002 area of ANWR remains locked away. The federal government has made commercial production all but impossible in the offshore Arctic. It took far longer for CD5 in a national petroleum reserve to gain regulatory approval than it should have. We've also witnessed repeated attempts to expand the use of pseudo-wilderness designations from aquatic resources of national importance to areas of critical environmental concern and outstanding national resource waters, all to circumvent ANILCA's no more clauses and to stop development. At the same time, federal agencies have generally become less cooperative. less willing to work with us to get to yes than to start and stay at no. Even producing on state lands has become more difficult, more costly, more complex, and more time-consuming for the likes of ASRC and OTNA by virtue of actions that are taken at the federal level. We also face a crush of national regulations, from the Waters of the United States rule to the Stream Protection Rule, and a movement that believes that keeping needed resources in the ground will somehow result in a safer, more stable world. And all of this comes at a time of low resource prices, at a time when the federal government should be trying to protect the competitiveness of our extractive industries, not finding ways to close off access and strand their capital. This is a time when we should be opening our lands and waters to responsible development, streamlining the permitting process, and working to ensure that protests and litigation do not hold us back. This is a critical time for resource production in our state. I believe that we need to speak up. We need to highlight the hypocrisy that we see in efforts to lock down our lands while at the same time demonstrating how well we care for the environment as we develop our natural resources. And there's no better way to do that than by hearing from Alaskans who know the benefits that come from increased resource production and what needs to be done at the federal level to unleash our potential. We have played a tremendous amount of defense in recent years and in many ways have kind of held our own. But in the remaining months of this administration, we could yet again be put back on our heels, and we must be prepared for a new administration that will take office just 10 months from now, not knowing whether it will be friendlier in nature or perhaps even more antagonistic. So we've got our work cut out for us. That any resource project can survive the current interplay between federal agencies and millions of pages of rules and countless more pages of guidelines, manuals, legal opinions, and planning documents seems almost miraculous. But we know that it can be done. The states, including Alaska, typically permit projects in a fraction of the time that it takes the federal government. The offshore regulatory regime imposed in Alaska may be chaotic, but look at other countries. Look at Norway and Russia that have vibrant programs in their OCS regions. We can also look around the world and realize that it should take far less than 7 to 10 years for a new mine to begin operation. But I am optimistic about Alaska's future. We have resources that all other nations covet. We're a provider in a growing and a hungry world. We know that prices are low right now, but we've seen prices go up and we've seen prices go down. And a majority of our citizens strongly support production because they understand the wide-ranging benefits that made in the USA carries, whether it's high-paying jobs to revenues to energy and national security. So today we're gathering good ideas and counsels on how we might amend, reform, direct, and provide oversight of federal law and federal agencies. This is an opportunity, again, to hear from many in the sectors across the state. We have a strong panel, 3 strong panels that are with us this afternoon, and the plan or the schedule for the next almost 3 hours will be to hear from the 3 panels, taking testimony about 5 minutes from each. I'll have an opportunity at the conclusion of the panel to direct questions to the panelists. Once we have concluded that panel, if we have time before the conclusion of the 4 o'clock hour, which I'm most hopeful that we will invite people who have joined us here this afternoon to offer their public comment. We'd ask that the comment be limited. There is a sign-up sheet somewhere in the back, at the back of the room, there with Mr. Haymans, and when we get to this point that point in the afternoon, we'll give further instructions as to how we will move forward with that portion of the testimony.